Hi, Math 1103 students. Welcome to this video session on Chapter 6, Linear Equations in One Variable and Proportions. First, we're going to review the integer rules, and when we're doing that, we're going to try to do it without a calculator, so hopefully you can remember some of the facts. But of course, I will not take the calculator from you. You can use it on your tests and notes. All right, so if the signs are the same, you would add this and get -10. These signs are different, so you would subtract and take the sign of the larger number. When it says minus and negative, you would add and get 25. Here, this is the same as -3 plus 4, which would be the same as subtracting, which will give you 1, because 4 is the larger number. 1 negative, your answer is negative, and divide and multiply it like is. And if you have 2 negatives, your answer is positive. 8 minus 10, that's -2, because this is the same as 8 plus -10. So you will subtract and take the sign of the larger number. Next, 10 minus 4 is just like 10 fingers minus 4. You get 6. And -6 minus 2 can also be rewritten as -6 plus -2. Both of these are negative. So this answer is -8. Now we're going to undo these equations. So that means if you see subtraction, you're going to add. If you see addition, you're going to subtract. If you see multiplication, divide. If you see division, then multiply. So here we go. Some of you may circle and move or add side by side, but I found out the vast majority just add underneath. So you add 7 because the opposite of -7 is +7. You end up with x is equal to 10. And you can check it. Put it in right here. Does 10 minus 7 give you 3? All right, number 2, subtract 5. So therefore, x is equal to -17 because this is -12 plus -5 is -17. Number 3, this is division, so you're going to multiply. X is equal to 4 times 3, so x is equal to 12, and that works. 12 divided by 3 does give you 4. Here, this is multiplication, so you divide by 5. So x is equal to -25. So if you want to study for your test and maybe look at the blank notes that I emailed to you, that will be fine as well. All right, number 5, solve for x. This is a two-step, so you will subtract 3, because your goal is to get x by itself. And 5x is equal to 15, divide by 5, and x is equal to 3. Number 6, add 14. So 9x equal to -63. Then you divide by 9, and this is equal to -7. All right, number 7, you have to do the distributive property. So you're going to multiply 9 times 5 and get 45x minus 18 equals 45. Multiply everything. Now I'm going to add 18, and now have 45x is equal to 63. Oops, that's plus 18. Now you're going to divide by 45 because your goal is still to get x by itself. So x is equal to, when you divide that out, you get 1 2/5. All right, on number 8, you have a minus in front of the parentheses, so you need to distribute the minus to everything in the parentheses. So that'll be -2x plus 10. So it's 5x minus 2x, cannot multiply, plus 10 equals 35. So you put like terms together, 5x minus 2x is 3x plus 10 equals 35. So now we subtract 10, and 3x equals 25. Then you divide by 3. X is equal to 8 1/3. So if you get a decimal, just hit second FD. All right, next. Now we're going to put like terms together. So I'm going to put my x's together first. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. And this gives you 1x plus 5 equals 13. Now you subtract 5, and x is equal to 8. And remember, you can pause the video as much as you like. If I'm going too fast. All right, number 10. First you distribute. 3 times 5 is 15 minus 3x equals 8x plus 4. Now subtract 8x, put like terms together. Oops, on x. So you're going to have 15 minus 11x is equal to 4 because the 8x cancels there. Now you subtract 15. And you're going to have negative 11x is equal to negative 11. Then you divide by negative 11. X is equal to 1. All right, number 11. We're going to distribute first the 4 to everything. So this will be 5. Let me get my pen. 5x minus 4x, and then minus 36 is equal to 2x minus 3. 5x minus 4x is 1x minus 36 equals 2x minus 3. Then we're going to bring 2x over to meet the x. Well, actually, you can do the x too. It doesn't matter. So minus 2x minus 2x, negative x minus 36, you have to be careful, it's 36, not 3b, equals negative 3. Then you add 36, and negative x is equal to 33. But you can't leave this variable negative, so you have to divide by negative 1. So x is equal to negative 33. All right, so number 6. This is what people think is difficult, but you just need to multiply by the common denominator. So you can look at all these numbers, 3, 2, and 6. What number will multiply by all of those? And that would be the number 6. All right, 6 is the smallest number that would divide into all of that. So that's really what I'm doing. I'm really doing 6 times 1/3, which is really 6 over 3, which is 2x. 6 times 1/2, which is 3x, is equal to 6 times 5 over 6, where the 6 is canceling, you just have 5. So now you have 5x equals 5, and divide by 5. X is equal to 1. All right, now let's go to the proportions, the bottom portion. All right, for here, you cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to multiply 24 times 7 and 12 times x. So I have 12x is equal to 24 times 7. So 12x is equal to 168. Then you divide by 12, and you should arrive at 14. All right, the next one is another fraction. People want to be afraid of fractions, but don't. We're going to do magic on it and make it disappear. And we're going to do that by multiplying by, let's see, 5. All right. Well, actually, you can cross multiply. All right. This is like number 12. We multiply to make them cancel out. But since this is a proportion, we're going to cross multiply. Yeah, I'm trying to make a little more than what it is, and it's not. All right. Multiply those two and those two. So this would be 5 times x minus 4 equals 3 times 10. So distribute 5x minus 20 equals 3 times 10, which is 30. Got to be able to read your writing. Got to. Now we're going to add 20 and then divide by 5. So x equals 10. All right, now for the wildlife problem. Wildlife biologists catch, tag, and then release 135 deer back into a wildlife refuge. 2 weeks later, they observe a sample of 140 deer, 30 of which are tagged. Assuming the ratio of the tagged deer in the sample holds the same for all deer. The same for all deer in the refuge. Approximately how many deer are in the refuge? All right, so here we're going to set up a proportion, and we're going to do it in such a way where you're going to have the original tag over the total. Whenever you're doing proportions and you're doing like ratio comparing something, you're always going to put the total number of deer, this is our total, at the bottom, over the original number tag. Okay, so now is equal to number tagged in sample. So number, just put tag in sample over what did I just tell you, the total deer who are tagged. All right, so now we're going to set up that proportion, and that will be the original number tag would be 135 because they will catch and tag. All right, so that is going to be our original number. And then, do we know, it says how many deer in the refuge? We don't know our total deer, so that's why we have X. And then how many deer that number of deer tagged in the original sample, that would be 30, because it says 2 weeks later they observed a sample of the 30 deer which are tagged, and then out of the total deer that we have is 140. So now we cross multiply and divide. So we will multiply 30 times x and get 30x, and then 135 times 140. Can't erase on here, I'm sorry. So we're going to make the best of what we have. All right, so 135 times 40, 140 is 18,900. Then divide by 30. So there should be 630 deer in the refuge. And you can get your number and say, okay, should it be high or real small? All right, so now let's do the quadratic formula. This is the quadratic formula here. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to use that for these equations, but you have to make sure you have the x squared first, then the x, then the constant term. It only works when it's a quadratic formula, quadratic equations, and you have to make sure you have it in descending order. All right, so now let's go to analyzing what's what. And number one, you have what's in front of this a squared, that's your a. So my a is 1, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to 6. So now we're going to put all of that into this equation here. So it would be negative b, which is first, negative 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times. And that gives me negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 20 all over 2. Now we have to evaluate the radical. And I'm going to work this one out, but I'm not sure if my space is going to be my friend today. So this would be negative 5 plus or minus 1. This is a 5 all over 2. So that would be negative 5 plus 1, and then negative 5 minus 1 all over 2. So negative 5 plus 1 is 4 over 2, which is 2. Excuse me, negative 2, because this is a larger number. And negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6 divided by 2, which would be negative 3. All right, so now let's go through number 2. I'm trying to do a different color. And let's see, we can know that your A is 1, your B is negative 2, and your C is negative 15. So the formula, that'll be a negative inside a negative, plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is negative 2 squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times 1. All right, so now you go ahead and you evaluate. 2 plus or minus the square root of 4. Then I say plus, because both of these are negatives, that would be 60 all over 4. So that gives you 2 plus or minus the square root of 64, which is 8 over 4. So it's 2 plus 8, and then you divide by 4, and that will give you 10 over 4. And then you have to do, now when I did 4 plus 60, that gave me 64. And the square root of 64 is 8. Oh, and 2 times 1 is 2, right? I'm sorry. So it's 10 divided by 2. That will give you 5. And then you have to do it where it's 2 minus 8. And that will give you over 2, 6 over 2. So that answer would be negative 3. So the answer is negative 3 and 5. All right, for number 3, the quadratic formula. And hey, I can't erase the page. But what I probably will have to do is set them up and give you the answers. All right, for number 3, your A is 1. Your B is negative 4. And your C is going to be negative 21, because you have to first make sure the equation is equal to 0. So you have to bring it over. And I'll write up top, it'll be x squared minus 4x minus 21 equals 0. All right, so my C is negative 21. So this would be our negative B, and this is already negative, plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is negative 4 squared, minus 4 times A times C, which is negative 21, all over 2A, which is 2 times 1. Okay, so because my space is running out, when you solve this problem, you will end up with negative 3 and 7. On number 4, you will proceed to set it equal to 0 first. So x squared minus 11x plus 10 equals 0. So when you set it up, you will have your A, which is 1, B, which is negative 11, and C, which is 10. So that would be negative of negative 11 plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is negative 11 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 10, all over 2 times 1. Now, when you finish solving it, your answer will be 1 and 10. Because plus or minus, remember, you have to do it one way adding, one way subtracting. All right, so number 5. A equals 1, B equals 5, and C equals 3. So we have negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 3, all over 2 times 1. This gives you negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 12 over 2. So this is negative 5 plus or minus 13. And sometimes you can leave the square root of 13 over 2. And you should have a plus or minus key on the bottom of my math lab. If not, you can write it 2 times, like negative 5 plus the square root of 13 over 2, comma, negative 5 minus the square root of 13 over 2. And I always put your fraction symbol before you start typing in the answer. All right, number 6. This would be x squared plus 2x minus 4 equals 0. So here, you put in your a is 1, b is 2, and your c is negative 4. So it's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4 all over 2 times 1. So this gives you negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 16 over 2. And by the way, you can put in your calculator straight forward, and it'll do it for you, especially if you have the most of you. So this is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 2. And you have to simplify 20 down into negative 2 plus or minus square root of 4 times square root of 5 over 2. So the final answer, I'll put it in red, will be, you have to simplify it though. It's going to start out with negative 2 plus or minus square root of 5, because the square root of 4 is 2, all over 2. Then the 2 cancel, and you end up negative 1 plus or minus square root of 5. So everything does simplify down. And this concludes our video, our notes on chapter 6.